Ready, Mr. All right, good evening, everyone. We shall start the meeting. Roll call show that Tom Perry is still in Florida.
Is that what it shows?
That's what it shows. And Clint is in someplace else. Portugal. All right, moving on to agenda review. Does anyone have any additions to the agenda? Nope, hearing none. We'll move on to approval of minutes of February 21st, 2017. I'll take a motion, please.
Move approval.
Second?
All right, any discussion about the minutes? What a wonderful job Nancy did. No, okay. All those in favor of approval of the minutes? Passes unanimously. Moving on to public hearings. Public hearing A. They told me I had to read the whole thing, so sit back. Determining whether it is in the best interest of the town and how to dispose of certain tax-acquired property that has not been redeemed through the town's redemption policy. First, 25 College Heights, tax map 19-002, lot 053, suggested sale through sealed bid offered to general public. Second, 30 Island Avenue, tax map 27004, lot 087, suggested sale through sealed bid offered to abutting property owners. Number 3, 2547 Essex Street, tax map 006-04, lot 055, suggested negotiated sale to a butter that owns property from which this parcel was split when it was tax acquired by the town, or sale through sealed bid offered to abutting property owners. So, is that all there is? Is anybody going to set this up, or? Oh, you are? Okay. That's you.
So I guess this is one of my first official acts as tax collector. I will ask you to please bear with my voice, if you would. In December of 2016, we foreclosed on 5 pieces of property for non-payment of 2015 property taxes. We've had some luck in moving through the redemption process for a couple of the parcels. Another parcel, I had talked with council and committee about meeting with the property owner who wants to redeem but is having difficult time coming up with the money to redeem. And I have another parcel that when we went back through our material, we cannot find proof that the property owner has signed for the certified mailing. So the mailing hasn't come back yet. So on Friday, I had staff post a notice on the property asking folks to please be in touch with the town. So I'm only bringing one parcel, one property from the 2015 foreclosures forward, and that's 25 College Heights. We do have proof that the property owner picked up the offer of redemption letter. She signed for it. We have not heard anything from her, and we are a month after the deadline. So I think all indication is that they have no interest in attempting to redeem this property. It is a small lot on College Heights with a single-family home on it. It's currently vacant. Given the fact that there's been no contact and we can verify that the owner has received the mail, staff is recommending that we go through with the process to sell this property through sealed bid to the general public. I don't know if there are any questions about that one. I'm going to move on to Cindy. How do you want to take these one at a time?
We were wondering if we should just take them one at a time because they're different.
Sounds good.
Different. So, does anyone wish to speak on 25 College Heights?
Is the property owner, obviously is out of town, are they out of state?
Yes.
Is the process something that would be difficult to understand?
I don't believe so. When the letter that went out to all of the property owners was identical, with just the information, specific to the property changed. And it was very clear that they had a month, they had 30 days to provide us with a written notice of their intent. We have always taken a very liberal interpretation of what that means. Sometimes it means people walk in and say they want to redeem it, and the folks down front write, I want to redeem my property at this, whatever the location is, and the person signs it. The fact that she signed for this more than a month ago, my email was on it, my phone number was on it, and the town address was on it, and nothing. I have not received any.
And it's very clear that if they don't respond, they're
Oh, it's very clear that,
sacrificing their property.
yeah, very.
Okay.
All right, I guess we'll move on to 30 Island Avenue.
The town acquired 30 Island Avenue quite a long time ago, and we came before the council a while ago trying to figure out how we might deal with 30 Island Avenue, because we knew at that point of one boundary dispute, and then that turned into, at the public hearing, 2 potential boundary disputes. I reached out to Maine Municipal Association, and who are kind of the experts in this type of municipal law. They have strongly encouraged us not to be in the business of trying to rectify the problems, but to instead reach out to the abutters through what we already have in the sale to abutters process, and give them an opportunity to perhaps work with one another and have one or all of them submit bids. But to leave the untangling of the civil issues as a civil matter and not a municipal matter was very important. So that's why staff in this one is recommending a sale through a sealed bid offered to the abutting property owners, which is one of the options that council has in the ordinance.
So that means because there's more than one abutter, they would be competing against each other in a sealed bid type thing.
It could happen that way. They could get together and have a discussion ahead of time, and one of them could agree to buy it. I think what MMA was suggesting to me is we just didn't think that was a good role for the town to try to figure out where those lines should be. I was sick on Friday, but Nancy was able to get in touch with 2 of the abutters the ones that have made their concerns known, and it seemed that they were agreeable to trying to resolve it in this way. I think the thing that I would need some indication from council on is, previously you had wanted the demolition of the building to be a requirement of a deed requirement, that the building come down as part of that. And I don't know if you still would want to do that if you were selling it to an abutter.
How large is a piece of land?
Very small,
It's tiny,
tiny.
Like less than
tenth of an acre or something.
tenth of an acre or something like that? So it's not a conforming lot size?
It is, right now, it's a legally non-conforming.
Legally
lot.
non-conforming?
Yep.
And I'm assuming the building is not in very good condition?
It is in
Damn near
terrible
fallen down.
condition. As I understand the ordinance, as long as they could meet setbacks, as long as they rebuilt within 18 months, then they could take advantage of the legally non-conforming lot. Evan, does that sound right? I actually might have learned something.
All right, we'll ask the public if there's anyone that wishes to comment on this. Hearing no one, we'll move to number 3, 2547 Essex Street, and council will have a chance to vote on all this in a little bit.
So this is a piece of property that was in fact part of one large 10-plus acre lot that when the taxes weren't being paid, the mortgage company, actually the mortgage wasn't being paid, the mortgage company came in and foreclosed. They did not foreclose on the entire lot. They left a non-conforming piece out there, which is in the previous owner's name. And the previous owner stopped paying property taxes after they lost their house. And which meant that the mortgage holder stepped in but only paid on the large lot and not the non-conforming, small non-conforming lot. We were approached by people who were attempting to buy the house lot, the bigger lot, and they wanted us to give them this small, previously tax-acquired piece. My suggestion is that, back in the file, I can see where Annie, our previous finance director, had reached out to the mortgage company that owns the abutting land to see if they would buy it from the town. But that dates back, I want to say 9 years ago, eight or 9 years ago. My recommendation on this one is that we look at reaching back out to the mortgage company to see if they will buy the land back, almost like a redemption, but it's not a redemption because it doesn't go back in the original tax-acquired owner's name. And the reason for that is in order to be able to do on the lot what people might like to do on the lot, they need the frontage. And we created, when we took a piece of the frontage, it created the nonconformity. So I would think we would first want to try to remedy it, but I can't do it through the redemption process because the owner is different. So what I'm asking is, would you consider a negotiated sale for that very narrow purpose?
Okay. Anyone wish to comment on that? All right. I will close public hearing A. Move on to public hearing B. Determining whether it is in the best interest of the town to dispose of property located at Harrison Avenue, Main Street, tax map 027-004, lot 30, by offering abutters the opportunity to purchase through sealed bid process.
This is here because we were actually asked, we received a request asking if the town would consider selling this property. It is at the corner of Harrison and Main Street, and it is a lot right now that, I don't know if anybody had a chance to look at it, but it's big hill, gully, however you want to approach it. It is very important to town drainage. And so if we were going to let it go, we would have to do so with some very clear construction restrictions and easement language that would allow the town to maintain it. My understanding, in talking with the person who was looking to buy it, was that the purpose was to be able to add frontage to potentially be able to split a lot. And I know that council is interested in allowing for more development in the growth area. So the piece here, though, is this would not, in order to maintain the fairness, this parcel is not a buildable lot. So people outside of the abutters really would not have much interest in this piece of property. However, there are 2 abutters to this piece of property, which is why if council wanted to move ahead and dispose of it, I would strongly recommend doing fair notice to both abutters and giving them the opportunity to buy the lots.
Does anyone wish to comment on public hearing B? All right, moving on. Closing public hearing B. Moving on to public hearing C, amending the Town of Orono zoning map by rezoning the following lots from medium-density residential to village commercial. Tax map 27-2, lots 21, 22, 23, 24, and 25, as shown on the map. The addresses on these lots are 3, 5, 7, 11, and 15 Forest Avenue, respectively.
Yes, thank you. This Evan Rickert, Town Planner. This is a request that has come through town staff to for this rezoning. It arose after staff were approached by one of the property owners in this small stretch of Forest Ave about possibly being able to expand chiropractic practice. And we looked at a number of ways that might be accommodated. And the most straightforward and simplest way would be a simple map change that would extend the village commercial district for a total of 5 lots from just behind Woodman's, which is in the village commercial district, to include the Fairpoint central office. That's the utility building that's across from the post office. That's the first of the 5 lots, and would end at the Orono chiropractic facility, which is the 5th lot in that run. The planning board examined this at your request and made a recommendation after its own public hearing to recommend the rezoning. It did express concern about, it reflected the concern that they heard at the public hearing about traffic on Forest Ave near that intersection and parking and potential for congestion. The planning board did find that there is opportunity for off-street parking in that area associated with these lots. There is restriction already on parking in that stretch. You can't park toward the intersection from about the stairway that climbs up to the front of the post office. From there back to Bennick, there is no parking, and on the other side, there's no parking at all allowed. So, and the street itself is a 22 to 24 foot paved width. So, on balance, the planning board thought that there were sufficient controls and opportunities to handle whatever village commercial type uses there might be, but it did want to note that concern to the council and did so in its report to you earlier. And there might be further parking restrictions or something else that may be required in time. To show you and the public what we're talking about, this is the zoning, excerpt of the zoning map. The village commercial is in red, and you can see the major intersection of Main Street, Mill Street, Forest Ave, Bennick Road, with Woodman's Grill right at the corner and Circle K next door to it to the south on Main Street, and then along Forest Avenue. Across the street is the post office, that's village commercial. The 5 properties are outlined in black below that stripe. That striped area is an aquifer overlay district, so kind of in the way, but is not very material to this issue. It backs up, and those 5 lots in turn back up to the town office parking lot. Here it is in larger context, so you can see what the development pattern is there, and those are the lots there that we're talking about. See how it backs up to the parking lot? There's a steep drop-off behind Circle K and a steep drop-off from the parking lot, the municipal parking lot, and then there's a gradual rise as part of the backyards of these 5 properties.
Are all these lots under the same ownership?
No.
Okay, they're different, and is there unanimity among the owners for this?
Well, we had a public hearing. One property owner came, and we invited all 5 property owners to come, as well as abutters. And 2 property owners spoke in favor. I think one's represented here tonight. 2 spoke in favor. And then a third spoke, not in opposition, but just trying to get information. He would actually like the town to acquire his property. And we did not hear from the 5th lot. And then zoomed in, these are the 5 lots, and you can get a sense of the layout of the properties with respect to their backyards, the post office. There's a single-family home across Forest Ave, and that homeowner did also speak to the planning board at the public hearing and express concern about potential congestion and parking and whether there would be room to accommodate parking on these lots. So that's a brief summary of the request. Again, staff's opinion is that the most straightforward way to consider this is through a straight map change. It's consistent with the comprehensive plan's proposal or recommended policy to incrementally expand the village commercial district where the opportunity might arise and where there might be some reasonable commercial use, given the constrained boundaries of the village commercial district. And so this is in line with that policy suggestion.
Did Fairpoint's use of the lot in MDR, did that constitute a nonconformity or grandfather? How was
I
that?
think it might be considered what's called an essential public service, which is a use that's allowed
Okay, so it was,
throughout the district, but throughout all districts, but it's larger than what you would normally think of as an essential public service, which is often like a pump station or something like that. I'd have to really check to see if it's a non-conforming use. It's not if it's a public facility, it would certainly be allowed as a major public facility, but it's not. It's a privately owned central office. It's a utility building. So I think probably it would be an essential public service, essential service.
and changing it to village commercial doesn't affect their use of the
No,
property
it
for that
certainly,
purpose?
it would, if anything, it would more strongly sanction it.
Okay.
Does anyone in the public wish to comment for or against? Go right ahead. You just come up and just, if you would state your name for the,
Hi. Whoops. Hi, Bill Reed. I'm with Marciello Commercial. I'm working with Orono Chiropractic on their potential build-out. The 2 of the property owners have talked with us and asked us, once the zoning is complete, to meet with them again, because we sent out feelers for them on acquisition. And so there has been discussion, if that's a concern, with one of the landowners approached us at the last public hearing and said, hey, when this changes, come please talk with me. And so we have that. The abutting neighbor we have been talking to. The 3rd property owner I've talked to, but he right now has his own plans of like something he'd like to do. I can't speak on what those are, but the goal of Dr. Arsenal is that if he does do something there, that it be done appropriately, and he wants to get as much parking away from where people have seemed to migrate their parking at different times, more into the back and do a new design and layout. And I think that's the primary concern that he has had. Watching, even though he has asked people not to park across the street, some people do, and they run across the road, and he doesn't like that, type of situation. And I guess that's the brief overview.
Great, thank you very much. Anyone else wish to comment? All right, hearing none, I will close public hearing C. And flip the page. All right, that's the end of public hearings. We'll move on to acknowledgement by council members. Tom Spitz, do you have anything?
Yes, I want to remind everybody that we have an election tomorrow for town council and the school board. The polls will be open in spite of the snow, right?
If I may. I actually had a conversation with our town clerk earlier today, just to make sure that I understood. Because of the way we call our elections, there is no ability to postpone voting, to close early, so we will be here from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m.
Maybe on Wednesday.
We might be putting some town staff up for the night, but it is, I would strongly encourage that people come in as early as they can. We are expecting that the heaviest snowfall is supposed to hit our region between 4 and 8 p.m. on Tuesday, so starting Tuesday afternoon. And the rates that they're talking about are 2 to 4 inches an hour. So I will just say, Rob and his crew do an amazing job. I'm not sure that anybody could keep up with that. The roads are going to be terrible if the snow comes in as predicted. But yeah, we'll be here. I probably won't be, but somebody will be.
Anything else, Tom?
Okay, well, I just wanted to say the same, basically that I'm no sure Rob and his crew will do the best job they can, and but it may take a while.
To do a little
Do acknowledgement.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'll do it during public comment. Sorry, I'll wait.
Sam? Nothing?
I just want to acknowledge Jeff. I know people will be saying things later down the road.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, you don't know what we're going to say, Jeff. But you've been a great addition here for a long time, and you're a mentor and a friend, and I very much appreciate that. So I salute you. Thank you.
Judy?
I would again like to remind people about the elections tomorrow. I think it's very interesting and in some ways very encouraging that for 2 seats on the town council, we have 5 people running. Is that correct? 5? So your vote will in fact make a difference. So please come and vote, and as I said, come early. We certainly think that's a good thing, and I just hope Rob and his crew are sleeping.
And eating their Wheaties.
Eating their Wheaties, getting their rest, and getting ready. We certainly do appreciate everything that we do, and I think most of us are, hopefully, we appreciate the magnitude of what they did in the last storm, and it sounds like this is going to be another one.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I think the key word here is patience on the part of the members of the community with the snow removal, because we can't be out there taking it away as fast as it's falling. So it's going to pile up. I wanted to acknowledge, I did this a little bit last time we had a meeting. I acknowledged the people of the Orono Economic Development Corporation and the role they play in the community. But we have a number of boards like that, and the planning board is a big one, the library foundation, the library trustees. I'm going to miss somebody here, I'm sure, but the Historical Society, the Land Trust plays a critical role in the community in terms of facilitating our management of both town property and development properties. That's a critical role they play. They're all volunteers. And we're very blessed in this community to have people that perform these functions for us, and we should never forget the roles that they play and the service they do. So that's it. That extends to all of you guys, too. So. Although you do get paid, but.
That was 2 pages?
No, that's not, I'm not done.
Oh, okay.
We'd say we got,
Ways to go.
well, we got,
Items of concern.
yeah, you got that.
All right, well, I've got a few acknowledgements. I have one from Mr. Perry, who said he would like to acknowledge Jeff Gordon for his 15 years of outstanding service to the town of Orono. In my opinion, being Tom, Jeff has modeled how to be an effective elected municipal official. Jeff always does his homework and comes to meetings prepared to discuss issues and ask questions. He encourages citizen input and cares deeply about council actions impact residents. We will miss Jeff's steady presence at our meetings, but Tom suspects other councilors have learned from Jeff and have become more effective from his model.
Oh, wow.
And
I'm impressed. Thank you.
I would like to acknowledge Jeff as well. You were a seasoned professional on this board when I got on here, and you were the chair, and I learned a lot of things about how to run a meeting and how to ask questions, and I really look to you as kind of a mentor and a leader on council. So I thank you for your service. And
Thank you.
we have a little bit of a gift for you. I'll go around.
Now you can keep track of your free time, Jeff.
Right.
Oh, the time is running out.
I didn't check to see if the time was correct, but.
It's not, it's an hour off. You forgot to move it. Thank you very much. Thank you for all the kind words. It's well appreciated.
Great.
So my time here on the council has been long, and I just, in retrospect, I treasure every moment that I spent up here. It's been an exciting experience. It's frightening at times. The vote of confidence that the community members put in you for putting you up here in these chairs is kind of awesome. That people trust you that much. That's either that or they really don't know what they're doing.
Well, they're grateful to have somebody do it.
They're grateful to have somebody do it, right? It's just, I would encourage anybody who ever has the slightest inclination to do something like this to jump in and do it. I learned so much by doing this job. It's incredible. The things that I didn't know when I started, and now maybe I know too much, and it's time for me to go. But it's a wonderful experience and something that everybody should do if they have an inclination to do it. And don't shy away from it. So thank you all for your kind words. Appreciate it.
And then I would also just like to acknowledge the passing of Marion Grantchamp. She passed away on Thursday. Moving on to unfinished business. Did we confirm that we're doing that? Okay. Order 1730, order taking order 16-209 off the table. I would need a motion for order 1730.
So moved?
Second.
All right. All in favor of order 1730? Passes unanimously. So order 16209 is an order accepting that the parcel located at 148 College Avenue in Orono and described as map 19-002, lot 20 on the town of Orono tax maps was inadvertently removed from the medium density residential zoning district and reclassified in error as being located within the university zoning district during the digitization of the town's tax maps, and further directing the town manager to remedy this error by updating the tax maps to reflect that map 19-002 lot 20 is within the medium density residential zone. Take a motion on that?
So moved.
Second.
Yeah, but
Yes, this was first brought to you in December and discussed, and again, it was, the map was an evolution of digitization of the maps in which the zoning layer in the files and the underlying parcel layer did not match, so there was some what's known as rubber sheeting to try to make them match, and that led to a slight overlap of this one lot, which is a single-family home that was in the single-family, in the medium-density residential district. And then when there was a final update of that digitization 2 or 3 years ago, it got interpreted by the company helping us as being in the, because of that original overlap, as being in the university district, which it was not. We went back to all the historical maps and traced the creation of the university district, what it included and what their MDR was, and looked for any, at any point, was there any time when that changed, and there was not. In December, the owner of the property asked the council to table it for a couple months so that he could just do some checking out of his own, because this was new to him. And he did. He and I met with his counsel and his commercial realtor, and we went over that string of maps, and they agreed that the official zoning map, the source maps, saw it as MDR. I've communicated, they asked if they could, if you would table it for one more month, which you did in February to tonight, to give them time to think it through what they might want to do next. And I think the owner probably wants to discuss with at least staff and probably with you in time the possibility of a formal zoning change going the proper way. He emailed me this afternoon to that effect and thanked us for giving them the time to think this through. So at this point, I think it's agreed that this was an error and that its proper zoning is medium density residential. And we will be bringing it in the next month or two, we will be bringing back a revised map to you for formal adoption. But this correction needs to occur now.
anyone have any questions or comments? So they, yeah, we would have to get this correction no matter what, and then they can move forward on what their plans are.
Yes, they would need, if they want to do something other than what's allowed in the medium density residential district, they'll need to get a zoning change of some sort, and we told them we'd be very open to discussing with what that is, and then, you know, have them bring it to the council to see if there is any interest in that.
Yeah. Oh, so
It's my understanding that even if council is open to eventually changing the zoning here, there needs to be an affirmative action to do that. So if we correct it, we're just affirming what we all
no.
know. And then we will update the maps correctly, which will bring those back. And in the meantime, if they want to pursue a zone change, they go through the same process as anybody else would.
Okay.
One question, Evan, does the fact that this occurred, is it incumbent upon the town to review all the properties in town that are on?
Yes, we're doing that.
Doing that?
Yeah, we had done that before when it got digitized. We just missed this one. It's a very small lot, and we just missed it. But we're having the staff here is going lot by lot, just to make sure that everything is as the council has approved zoning changes in the past.
All right, thank you.
Great. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, I'll take a vote on Order 16-209. All those in favor? Passes unanimously. Moving on to the consent agenda. I will take a motion to move the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second?
All right.
Can I just comment on one of the items
Sure.
on the agenda? The order 1731, which is setting April 10th at 7 o'clock as a date for a public hearing to consider ordinance amendments to the Town of Orono ordinances, definitions and sections of schedules to add recreational facilities and cultural facilities as uses allowed in the Economic Development Zone District, and to clarify the meanings of these related activities. And the area of town, I believe that this impacts our EDZ zone is primarily off Stillwater Avenue and predominantly near the intersection of Kelly Road. Is that correct?
No, the whole tech park and everything.
And, well, I'm at Tech Park on the other end, but definitely we're looking along Stillwater Avenue from the Tech Park, and then we skip through an area, and then we start with another EDZ zone at the Kelly Road. Is that correct?
Yes, the economic development zone is around 191 and 193, with a portion of the main technology park in the EDZ, and then a large land area around 191, including where the Boy Scout offices are, the land across the street from that, and then on the west side of 95, the land that's adjacent to I-95, and several properties out Kelly Road, including where our public works facility is.
And this is something that folks should be receiving notice of. If they haven't already, they will be receiving notice.
Yes.
If they live in the area.
The planning board has a public hearing scheduled for Wednesday night, and all those property owners have been notified of that hearing.
Thank you.
Great. I will take a vote on the consent agenda. All those in favor? Passes unanimously. Moving on to new business, Order 1733, order approving a 6-month moratorium ordinance extension on future development of Park Street in the C2 district and a portion of the University district. Take a motion, please.
So moved.
Second?
All right.
Yes. This is an extension. You adopted this moratorium in the fall, retroactive to September 22nd, which was the first time it was discussed in public venue. And it's, by state law, it can only go for 6 months, but then 6-month extensions can be added to that as long as reasonable progress is being made toward measures to mitigate the problem that caused the moratorium to be imposed. And we've been making reasonable progress. We've got a complete inventory of land use. We have done, Avi and I have been doing build-out scenarios for what we believe to be the most likely land that could be developed in the future. And we're looking at a 20-25-year horizon, so we're looking at blocks of land that we think are either redevelopable or vacant and developable. And so those are ready now to turn over, basically ready to turn over to a traffic engineer when that traffic engineer is engaged. We have met town manager and public works director and economic development director, and I'm not sure if anybody else, met with University of Maine officials about what this is all about and about their willingness to cooperate, both in terms of having their frontage along Park Street examined for possible entryways, if a second entranceway might, if that turns out to be one of the feasible things, and strategies, and potentially in terms of even financial contributions if that becomes necessary as part of the engineering studies. And it was very receptive, very favorable get-together with those officials. And then finally, the Rod Yerxa has been, and I think Rod and possibly Bell, I don't know, have been working with the Bangor Area Comprehensive Transportation System to do two things. Number one, find funding for an engineering analysis, traffic engineering, transportation engineering analysis. and an RFP or request for qualifications has been drafted. We've reviewed it and commented on it. I believe they have now applied for some funds that would help fund it. So that seems to be coming into place a little more slowly than we would like, but that's just the way the process is. So a lot of background work's been done, and I would hope that in the next 6 months, the traffic analysis could be undertaken and hopefully completed, and we'd have more answers as to what the combination of transportation strategies and land use strategies might be to make sure that this corridor works properly, is designed properly, so that it is safe and appealing.
Evan, with the university being in session, that's probably pretty imperative to the traffic study. Eh?
Yes, I mean, there are a lot of numbers, from past developments that are already available. But it's always good to have, when the traffic analysis is going on, to have the stuff happening so that you can measure and remeasure and verify if necessary.
Anyone else have any questions or comments? Nope. Hearing none, I'll take a vote on Order 1733. All those in favor? Passes unanimously. I think this is Evan's night. Order 1734, order approving the ordinance amendments to the Town of Orono Ordinances, Chapter 18, Land Use, Section 18-132, Lot and Yard Requirements, and Section 18-135, Off-Street Parking and Loading, for the purpose of clarifying the limits on parking within front yards. Take a motion, please.
So moved.
Second?
Evan.
Yes, thank you. This is an item that's been discussed a number of times now by council in committee, went to planning board for hearing and recommendation, which it made to you, and you conducted your own public hearing last month. And just as a recollection, this is, we regard it as a house cleaning measure to try to clarify both ambiguities and some conflicting sections of the ordinance in terms of parking in the front yard areas of properties, especially in the medium-density residential district, which is the single-family, two-family residential district, and is a source of complaints that comes in to either the police department or code enforcement or both. And so we discussed with you what the council intended when it first adopted its standards, and we reworked the ordinance to reflect those with a number of changes along the way, and also consolidated some of the provisions of the ordinance so that they are all found in one place now and are made to be internally consistent.
Okay, does anyone have any questions or comments about this? We have talked about this a great deal.
This is another one of those issues that, I don't know, it's been hanging around, I think, since I started on council about 15 years ago. It's one of the things that sounds so simple. Don't park in the front yard and make a mud hole. And when you get down into the details, how do you legislate that? It becomes incredibly complicated. And we've spent a lot of time talking about this and different scenarios and things that could happen or might happen, and what the impact of this is going to be. And I think everybody just reached the point where this is the best we can do right now. Let's put it out there and see how it works out. So I think it's worth voting in favor of it at this point.
Yep. Give it some teeth somewhere. Anyone else have any questions or comments? All right, hearing none, I will take a vote on Order 1734. All those in favor? Passes unanimously. Order 1735, order determining that it is in the best interest of the town to dispose of 112 acres of town-owned land off Taylor Road, a portion of Tax Map 9, Lot 2, to be used as part of the Maine Technology Park Wetlands Mitigation Project pursuant to the Town of Orono Ordinances, Section 2-150C. Take a motion, please.
So moved.
Second?
All right, and before Evan talks, I'd just like to note that I am recusing myself from this vote as I represent one of the parties.
Thank you. You had a public hearing on this last month, which we had maps. I have maps back there if you need to look at them again, or if anybody is unclear on what's being proposed. But in quick summary, back in 2000, period 2002 to 2004, when the town and Bennock Road Associates, a private property owner of property in the Maine Technology Park, were trying to get permission for a build-out plan, which involved altering another 5+ acres of wetland in the technology park. During that process, it was discovered by the town's consultant that there had been some wetland previously altered in that park during the original construction in the 1980s of Godfrey Drive and in a subsequent construction of one of the buildings in the property. An alteration that had state and local permits but did not have Army Corps of Engineers permit. At that point, everything was stopped. Everything was just stopped. There was the town and Bennock Road Associates withdrew their application because the remedies for getting to a build-out plan at that time were thought to be too difficult. The Orono Economic Development Corporation took the matter up again 3 or 4 years ago, believing the time was ripe to take another look at it. And they did. They, with the help of WBRC Architects and Engineers, created a new build-out plan for the lots owned by the town and Bennock Road Associates, which is not the entire park, but it's a substantial part of it. Kind of a cluster development that greatly reduced the additional impact to the wetlands. That plan was brought to the Army Corps and the Department of Environmental Protection and U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service for just a pulse, and was seen quite favorably, but we were reminded that there was this outstanding issue, and that outstanding issue hangs as a cloud over the development of the park because, in theory, certainly any development that even altered even 1 square inch of additional wetland would be held up for lack of resolving this earlier question, and potentially even a development that didn't impact other wetlands might be held up, we were told. So, so the Orono Economic Development Corporation simply believed it was best to try to resolve this now, get that cloud out of the way, and allow, especially with Dave Mylan on board, and coming out of the recession and interest in the park, to resolve this now. So that set us on a search for ways to mitigate. And you can mitigate through cash payments, which are quite expensive, or through in-kind land conservation. In-kind mean that there's a formula for how much land for every acre of wetland you've altered. It has to be set aside as conservation. It has to be land that's not conserved now. It has to be land that's vulnerable to development. It's got to be land that has some development capacity, as well as comparable important natural resources that would be impacted by that development. In time, we settled on this section of Taylor Road land that the town owns. It's adjacent to the landfill that's been closed out. It's got, can't remember exactly now, but 12 or 14 acres of upland that's developable with frontage along Taylor Road and access off of Taylor Road. It's got a very important waterfowl habitat it's got important large area that's a section of Caribou Bog. It connects to other conservation land, and early indications are, the initial indications from the Army Corps of Engineers was that this was suitable land and likely would take care of both the past mitigation need, but also would allow the build out to occur and impact another 1 3/4 acres of wetland. And so that would be essentially pre-permitted. And with that 112 acres. So it resolves something in the past, but also looks to the future and allows some other things to go forward. There has to be a third party involved, and we right now are talking to the Orono Land Trust, and they are interested in being of assistance on this. But what you would be voting for tonight is simply the finding that it is in the best interest, it is in the public interest to dispose of the land for the purposes we are discussing. Any particular application to the Army Corps and to the DEP, which still have to be finally put together, as well as any arrangement with any third party, such as the Orono Land Trust, and what the terms of that arrangement are, would need to come back to you for separate review, discussion, and authorization
So
before we move forward.
Yeah. The transfer of land would not occur unless the Army Corps accepted the proposal.
Correct. It would be contingent on that.
Just to clarify where we are in the process, the ordinances of the town require that we give, we have a public hearing any time that the council seeks to dispose of land or rights in land, except for in very narrow circumstances. At this point, this is that public hearing to see if there was any reason why council didn't want to dispose of the land.
Well,
You are not authorizing staff to do anything at this point, other than to know that we've gone through this process, and if it comes together, we would come back with the actual deeds, which council always signs off on any deed transfer or easement beyond the simple ones that I can take care of.
And the public hearing was last month, and this is the follow-up order to that hearing.
Great. Does anyone else have any questions or comments?
I'll just comment again, my earlier comments about the usefulness of volunteers. The Orono Economic Development Corporation is all volunteers. The Land Trust is all volunteers. They're all working with the town to make all of this possible. And it's another one of those issues. Maybe it's a coincidence, but as I'm leaving, there's several items here that have been with me the entire time I've been on council, and this is one of them. Resolution of the wetland violations in the tech park. And this will open up the tech park to further development, and that's something we badly need in the community, is economic development. So glad to see it going out the door.
We put all this on just for you.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. It's been a long time.
Left years ago, Jeff. We haven't done that.
Any other comments, questions? Hearing none, I will take a vote on Order 1735. All those in favor? 4 votes for and 1 recusal. All right. That one being me.
And just in case the people listening didn't hear before, we're not giving up all the land that we own either. We've kept a nice piece of that and
Yeah.
for the future.
Yep. And this isn't giving it up at this point either.
No, but I mean, we're not even, we're going to be holding on to, no matter what, some land there.
Sophie, did you want anything? Nope. Okay. Moving on to Order 1736. So, order determining that it is in the best interest of the town to dispose of certain town-owned property pursuant to the Town of Orono Ordinances, Section 2-150C. And then, do you want me to attempt to put what I think we're doing?
So for the purpose of putting the agenda together, because council only acts on orders, there had to be an order here. However, depending on the comments that we receive at public hearing, that may have wildly changed. So, didn't want to be presumptuous. So yes, you need to kind of work on the fly, Cindy, and amend the order.
Okay, so, so I would add to Order 1736 that property at 25 College Heights would be sold through sealed bid offered to the general public, that 30 Island Ave would be a sale through sealed bid offered to abutting property owners, and that 2547 Essex Street would be a negotiated sale to a butter that owned property from which this parcel was split when it was tax acquired by the town, or sale through sealed bid offered to abutting town, property owners. So I'll take a motion on that.
Did we want to amend the one property that we wanted the building taken down? Does that have to be part of this?
I think what would be better is if we took a motion on this and then maybe amended it to add the restrictions, right, Nance? Or do you want me to put it in?
I'll move the order as you constructed it in our
Okay.
presence.
All right.
Do you want to deal with Harrison as well?
Okay. So, I'm sorry. So I've got to,
You got
gotta add Harrison.
You don't have a second yet.
Okay, well, don't anybody second it yet, because I have to add that Harrison Avenue, Main Street, tax map 27004, lot 30, would be by offering abutters the opportunity to purchase through sealed bid process. Then I'll take a
Okay, and then
motion.
I will move that.
Second.
Okay, now I will take discussion on all of that. Sam had a very good
Did you wanna-
question.
I had a question about the Harrison Avenue piece, and that's,
We do, don't we?
when we're looking at just opening that to abutters of that property, and this is for the probable attempt to divide, to have the frontage to make it okay to divide. Are we denying possible neighbors of that property who may not want that divided to take? You see where I'm not trying to stir anything up here, I'm just trying to make sure.
Sam, as
For
a
once in my life,
counselor-
I'm
no,
trying not to
As
stir
a
anything.
counselor, it is your job to stir.
Consider it stirred.
That, yeah, absolutely, because as soon as the ownership of property is in the same name, adjoining property is in the same name, it merges the lots. So, once the lots are merged, if it gives somebody enough frontage to be able to split a lot, that is now a right. It is not something that has to come back and go through any other process. You can divide a lot in half. I will tell you, I won't tell you anything. I will just tell you that.
And so Sam's question is, we're only gonna offer it to the two abutters. We have two abutters involved, don't we?
Yeah, I don't think you could offer it beyond that, Judy, because it's not a buildable lot and we wouldn't want any kind of
That's
construction.
Sam's question, not mine.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
No, I mean, yes, it is my question, just simply because, I mean, other properties are being offered to anyone for sealed bid, but that's because they're buildable properties.
So the default that we would always try to go through would be a sale through sealed bid to the general public. So anybody would have an opportunity to purchase a lot. When you then look at the lot, there may be things that require it to not be the sealed, through just a general sealed bid. And we try very hard not to sell non-conforming lots that will never be able to be built upon to somebody else. And in this particular case, on this lot, we carved off a piece of this lot to the other abutter at one point, because when she was trying to buy her house, there was something had been, maybe a garage or something had been built over the line. And she only wanted, I reviewed the correspondence, she only wanted what she absolutely needed from us. This is a very sensitive lot, and it's one that we would have to be very careful in how we constructed easements and deed restrictions to make sure that it did not, that nothing was going to interfere with the drainage, because it's not just regular drainage, it is a place in our system where several things come together, and it's a critical point.
I think what Sam's getting at, though, is an abutter to the larger lots that could be developed, can they bid on this?
If you do it this way, no. The only ones that bid on that would have the option through sale to a butter are people who actually abut the property line. And in this case, there are two.
But if somebody wanted to prevent that because they didn't necessarily want the property to be split, I'm just saying.
I can't do it.
So if council had a
Couldn't hear you,
concern.
Sam.
Well, I'm only thinking that if somebody abutting the larger property did not want that to be divided,
Yeah.
it's sort of a strategic move, if they wanted to get that. So it didn't allow the frontage to allow the, I don't know. I mean, just like making sure everyone has every fair shot to do
So,
everything.
So, Sam, that's what elected officials do, right? And
And we do it well.
so, I would suggest, if that is a concern that council has, that council table that portion of the order and allow some kind of outreach to the abutters. I'm not 100% sure that, number one, I'm not 100% sure that the property owner that approached us would be the property owner that was the highest bidder on the sealed bid. So it's not a guarantee he would get it. But it's also not a guarantee if he takes it today that he's planning to do anything today with it. But if you're concerned about that and you don't want the town to be implicated in making something happen in a neighborhood without all of the people getting together, but, I mean, that can happen all the time anyway.
Yeah.
I would just say that your recourse would be to not take action on it and perform some kind of outreach to the neighborhood before you chose to sell it. I would say this was on the agenda and got posted, so people knew you were going to think about it.
Right now, I think that the concern arose from conversations that were taking place about the possibility of increasing road frontage requirements in that area. I think this property right now, as the ordinances are written, has enough land to divide. I believe. Right now, I believe that you require 110 feet, is that correct? Road frontage?
150.
100 and what?
150, I believe. Just working out today, I thought it was 150. In what district?
This is the
MDR.
MDR,
It's 150.
150?
Right.
So it'd be 300 feet, 300 feet. I thought that, well, I thought when I looked at this that they have enough property, but they might be concerned about if we make a change requiring, I thought there was talk about requiring 125 frontage on on Main Street with this overlay that we've just been talking about. And we're talking about increasing the frontage requirement to 125 feet.
There's been talk,
Yes, that's right.
no action.
That's
but
right.
talk.
And I thought when I looked at the map, this particular property, with the way that the law is written right now, could divide anyway. But if we change the requirement, requiring more frontage, then they would need this piece to enable to be able to divide. I think.
You're 2 steps ahead of me on that one, Judy. I will bow to
And I'm
your-
not sure, but I'm 100% accurate on that myself, but I remember thinking that when I was reading the frontages that were in existence already. So my thing is, they probably could divide now if they wanted to, I believe. I really do, this particular owner, I think.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
I was just thinking of like if this is some,
Just thinking if this is something we need to allow other people access to or knowledge of before it happened. I was just thinking outside the box.
Sure. Good thoughts.
I would say, but I would not hamper this acquisition any more than it already is, myself. I would just leave it as it is.
Anyone else have any comments one way or the other?
I do have questions about some of the other pieces. For example,
Okay.
the piece out in College
Why don't
Ave.
we resolve one?
Okay.
All right, so, I don't know,
My question's been answered. I don't think we need to change anything as far as the Harrison piece.
Okay. All right. Somebody else had questions?
So for clarification, the method we're using for that piece of property, the drainage piece, whatever the address was, is that we're gonna sell it to sealed bids from the two abutters, right?
Yes.
Okay.
With strong stipulation based on the maintenance of the necessary drainage.
Yeah, we had to take an easement back.
Yeah.
Okay.
On the College Ave property,
College Heights?
College Heights rather, can we condition the bid to be a minimum amount to pay back taxes?
So normally, what I've done in the past is we put a package together. All over that package is that the council has the right to accept or reject any and all bids. But I also put on there what is owed to the town, and the understanding, at least I would think, you would probably not want to accept less than what is owed to the town. And in this case, that's just shy of $14,000.
And the property on Essex Street was acquired from the abutter, the current abutter. Well, the land was,
The land was part of the parcel, Judy.
Mhm.
So if you can imagine, the parcel was this
big,
big.
yeah.
And when they refinanced their home,
Mm-hmm.
for whatever reason, the mortgage holder did not draw the boundary of what they were going to take as the entire parcel. They left this little tail end off. So when the property owner stopped paying their taxes, the mortgage holder steps in and pays what they have an interest in. Well, they didn't have any interest in this little piece over here. So we foreclosed on the little piece. This property, the large property, is not held by the same, it's in two different names at this point. What your policy allows me to do is negotiate redemption with the last assessed owner of record.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know, redemption.
That's
Yep.
and it, so
Okay.
essentially, that's the only reason it's here, it's because I can't, that doesn't make sense.
Okay.
All right. Anyone else have any questions or comments about how we're doing these things? Hearing none, I guess I will take a vote on Order 1736. All those in favor?
Wait a minute.
Okay.
Did we want to amend that on the 30 Island Avenue to require the property be cleared
The building.
of the building and the car and the garage?
Oh, okay.
And it goes on and on.
Okay.
That would be wonderful, because that would be part of what got advertised in the bid.
Okay,
And
well,
just understand that when you do that, it is likely that it's going to significantly reduce the amount of money that we get for that property. But I think it would be a really prudent thing to do.
I think speaking for the people that live in that neighborhood, that they would be fine with
Yeah, how does that
having the
work?
building removed.
There's personal property.
There is a process that you can go through. Once they buy the property, they can declare the car as abandoned, and get a title for the purpose of salvage, so that they can get rid of the vehicle.
Well, I was actually thinking of another parcel that might have personal property inside it.
So let me tell you, there's a story there. I once foreclosed on a house that had significant personal property on the inside, and the town doesn't tax personal property, but we do tax the structure. And when you look at how long lapses from when we foreclose to when we deed it, it is long enough to call most all the time to now name that as abandoned. If it's vacant. If it's not vacant and somebody is still living there, then whoever buys the parcel would be responsible for evicting them and all of their material. So it kind of turns into the same situation if you bought a house and there was material left in it, the rules that govern that. helpful?
Yeah, a little bit.
So I would like to offer an amendment to
Okay.
require that in the sale of 30 Island Avenue, that the sale also include an agreement to clear the property of structures and other property, I guess, the cars that are on the property.
Okay. I have a second on the amendment.
Second.
So I'm taking a vote on the amendment. All those in favor of amending the order? Passes unanimously. All right, any other further questions or on Order 1736 as amended? If not, I'll take a vote. All those in favor? Passes unanimously. All right, moving on to future agenda items and items of concern. I'll start down this end because I know there's a few down this end.
Well, I'll defer to Jeff, because I'm sure he has quite a few.
Sam?
I yield to Councilman Gordon.
Judy?
Gee whiz.
Really? You know, live with a big fanfare, Jeff. Oh, nothing.
Okay, all right. This is my exit interview. So, all right, so the first thing, I prepared a statement, and I'm just going to read it. I don't normally do that, but I'm just going to read it. Okay. It has become apparent that the administration in Washington will embark on an immigration enforcement agenda that will include policies of mass deportation actions that many people in our community will find objectionable. In the execution of that agenda, the administration apparently intends to seek to recruit and otherwise compel local law enforcement agencies to assist in the pursuit of a mass deportation agenda. I feel that our community, the home of the University of Maine, has always been a welcoming community and has a long tradition of valuing a diverse population of individuals. Continuing that tradition, I believe that Orono should oppose or at least refuse to cooperate with the aggressive and objectionable immigration policies being pursued by the administration. The administration's immigration agenda, as I understand it, constitutes a real threat to the values of our community. In an effort to ensure that our law enforcement agencies defend and not threaten members of our community, I request that the manager inform the council as soon as possible of any attempt to recruit cooperation from any part of our municipal government or its departments in the enactment of federal immigration policies. The ACLU has formulated a set of 9 model policies pertaining to the involvement of our municipal law enforcement agency in cooperation with the administration's pursuit of these objectionable immigration agenda items. I'm recommending that these 9 policies be considered for adoption by the council within the next few weeks. These policies are intended to protect members of our community from mass deportation actions and to protect their privacy. The policies also seek to acquire redress in the event of abuses or mistakes on the part of the administration and to protect members of our community from discrimination. And I can provide the details of those 9 policies to the manager. I'll do that one tomorrow. So that's one thing I think the council, in my absence, should be taking a look at. Okay, then I have a number of items that have been bugging me for a long time, and I'm just going to lay them out there. Things that I would like to see the council that follows me take up. One of those is the inspection of rental properties. I think that all rental properties in our community should be inspected for life safety codes, not for cosmetic character, but just life safety issues. I feel that these inspections should be paid for by the owners of the rental properties, some kind of a fee per unit basis. I think that all rental properties not already covered by current inspection protocols, in other words, anything that's multifamily less than 3 units, come under this inspection. And I think the council would be wise to consider a contract with a provider for that service. I just think with the character of our rental properties that we have in the community, that we just have too many dangerous situations that are allowed to persist. And one day, we will regret that horribly. town-owned properties. I've already been working with Sophie on this, but I think that all currently owned properties must be assigned a public purpose that warrants town ownership. Newly acquired properties should be assigned a statement of public purpose within 1 year of acquisition. And properties without a statement of public purpose should be subject to liquidation within 2 years of acquisition. And wherever possible and practical, properties should be sold with a covenant requiring residential or commercial development. These are just my thoughts on the issue, but if you look at what the properties that the town owns, we own pieces of property scattered all over the community that have no public purpose. They serve no public purpose, and in many cases, they actually impede development and returning other properties back to tax-paying status. I think that the town should have an enforcement database on all properties, and this database would detail complaints against properties, determination of fact by the town, enforcement actions that might result from that determination of facts, and whether or not the complaints or issues were resolved. I think this is important because we frequently find that most properties are fine. We don't ever have any problems with them. But when you come to things that are really niggledy, but like never taking your trash cans in, and they're blowing across the street and whatever, and this happens over and over and over again at the same piece of property. I think we could get a lot better compliance if we had a database like that detailing those complaints and actions. I think the council should pursue mitigation of vernal pool issues within the designated growth area, where there's a whole lot of new opportunities in that regard with the SAMP program that was recently accepted by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and the Army Corps of Engineers. That's something that Evan Rickert and I have worked on for probably 7 or 8 years now, try to get that program accepted by the Army Corps of Engineers. It's now in effect, and the town is moving on actually acting on it. And I think that's something very important for the development, residential development in particular, in our growth area. I think we should have 30 Island Avenue is a perfect case. And there's another piece of property up on College Avenue currently. I think we should have a policy for returning abandoned and vacant properties back to a best and highest use status as soon as we can. It depresses values and just makes the community look shabby and bad. And finally, adoption of a policy of redirecting the proceeds from any liquidation of town-owned properties toward the development of capital infrastructure or the acquisition of real estate in support of sanctioned municipal programs. In other words, I don't think the proceeds of sales of town-owned properties should go to operations budgets or routine maintenance, road maintenance, that sort of thing. It should be reinvested back into capital infrastructure and real estate that the town actually has a use for and a desire for, and that benefits the community. My suggestion for those things would be, first of all, the development of the fiber-based broadband, which is something that the OTO Fiber Corporation was established to undertake. There's grant funds available to do that, and a pilot study is going to be taken up in the near future. The second thing would be acquisition of wetland mitigation properties, and that is in support of that SAMP program that the Army Corps of Engineers recently accepted. And then I think that the council should identify other target infrastructure priorities and see that they're all prioritized, so that when those funds do become available from the sale of unneeded properties, that we have a place to put the money as soon as possible. We don't want the money just sitting in the bank. It should be benefiting the community in some way. So that's my shopping list. Good luck.
I don't know, you've got another 3-4 years right there. Sure, you may.
Make Jeff happy.
Okay.
As he leaves.
Sure.
Happy to work with you on your immigration concerns.
Yep.
Given the ordinance that you passed last year, where we broadened and codified the fact that the town is an equal opportunity employer and service provider. This, I think a lot of those will fit into the it could round that out. The inspection of rental properties, we heard your concern when you voiced it in committee, and we actually have staff folks working right now. We're using a little bit different model that we're going to bring back to council, where it's actually done through the fire department, so it truly is life safety. But we think folks will be interested in that. We've already worked on town-owned properties. That's slated for committee. The enforcement database, I think we might be envisioning it a little bit differently, but where we are walking on staff right now is maximizing our use of GIS so that property data would be held by property as opposed to by department. Right now, if I want to know what's happening at your house, I have to go to the fire department and talk to them. I've got to go to the police department and talk to them, and code enforcement. And they might not remember that 4 months ago they talked to you about your trash cans. So what we're talking about is packaging all of that up and being able to report on a parcel basis, so that staff would be able to click on and see all of what's been happening at that parcel.
That's basically
I think we're probably a couple years out on that, and then I think if we had more staff, we could do it, but we're piecemealing it together. We're working on the designated development areas and implementing the SAMP. I'm working on trying to return some of the tax-acquired property. I think for a long time, we were concerned. We didn't like the idea at the staff level of taking homes away from people. They've been foreclosed on, but then I think you had staff that really wanted to work with people, and there's nothing wrong with that, except it's not the policy. And so this year, I've gone back. 30 Island Avenue is part of that. We've got one Maplewood, which is currently under discussion with the heirs. We're getting ready to put the old Mooney property out on Essex Street in with this grouping. So the proceeds from the sale of town-owned property, the one thing I would say, Jeff, is I think that's a great idea. But just remember, if College Heights, if the winning bid was $20,000, 14 of that goes back to resolve back taxes that have already been there. It's the accounts receivable piece. But no, I've heard you. I listen sometimes.
I just wanted to, I don't want to take up too much time because it's getting late, but I just wanted to make note that of the credit card use downstairs. Yeah. You want to speak to that a little bit?
So we are in fact accepting credit cards downstairs. We started on the 2nd of January. Some people haven't understood the process that we use, but it's a third-party vendor. And it's the way most all municipalities do it. So if somebody chooses to use a third-party vendor, there's a convenience fee of 2.5%, a minimum of $1. In January, we brought in $15,148.27. And in February, $9,752.28. I would just remind folks that we don't get the convenience fee. That stays with the third-party vendor. But with that, we also don't get the credit card numbers. We don't get any of the liability of that transaction. We simply get the money in our bank account the next day. And I will tell you, looking at the report, I get a monthly report from Shelley that breaks down the total amount of the transaction, how much of it was money that belonged to the town and how much was the convenience fee, because we really wanted to see how much people were paying in fees. Most all the fees are under $5 or less. There are a couple. Somebody came in and redeemed their property on their credit card and paid a $112 fee. But that was a choice, and I think it's a choice that they might not have otherwise been able to redeem their property. So,
Okay, that's good. Thank you. Moving on to public petitions. I don't think we have any. Public comments? You're not a comment, you're, go. Somebody was jumping the gun back.
I'd like to thank Jeff for his years of service with the town of Orono. Thank you. And there are plenty of seats available if you ever miss the meetings. I'm also wondering, is there any online information for the upcoming candidates for tomorrow's voting?
I know the Penobscot Times has ran an article. I haven't seen it, but I know they ran it. Candidates Night is streaming or on the YouTube channel. And I think there's various private ways, Facebook and whatnot, to see some information. Yeah.
as a policy, town staff doesn't put out anything other than their name, simply because we don't want to get in trouble for saying the wrong thing.
All right.
Candidates Night was held a couple of weeks ago, and, they answered questions, all the candidates. It's a really kind of an interesting night, and we did have good participation, audience participation this time, too, which was
Yes.
nice. It was, if you can see that, you'll learn a lot.
Right.
Typically, the Penobscot Times articles, the candidates write their own articles, but they're kind of like a mini bio and, a little why I want to do this and my experience, what I have to offer. So if you
Perhaps-
get a chance to read those, I think you'll find those helpful too.
I'll see if they have that archived.
Yeah, it should have been, they usually run it the week before, don't they?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Should've
so
come out
2 weeks
this-
ago, we had our candidates night, and probably the following week, you would see the Penobscot Times. So, and then the week after that, usually elections.
And if you can't find it, we have a copy of the Penobscot Times down at the library, so
Uh-huh.
you can look at it there.
There'll be a sprint tomorrow.
There you go, before the snow.
The crash course in voting. And also, you mentioned Mary Ann passed away. She was the woman with the shoulder-length hair and floppy hat. Correct?
No,
Is she? I'm wondering if she's whom I'm thinking of.
no, she
Okay.
was about 84.
Right.
She lived on College Avenue with her husband.
Okay, I'm thinking of someone else. And condolences to them.
Yeah.
A relief for myself. And so for that, I'd like to wish everyone a happy St. Patrick's Day.
Thank you very much, Susan. Anyone else have a public comment? I don't know if you may. You better ask somebody else.
I'm going to make the chief sweat just a little bit more. I just want to remind folks that next Monday, as required by town charter, there will be a council meeting here at 7 p.m. to swear in 7. Charter says 7:30? 7:30. Ooh, I have an extra half hour. Excellent. For swearing in of counselors. We will
Aren't we meeting
plan.
at 6 that night?
We're going to have a committee meeting at 6. And at some point during that, whether it's the 7:30 meeting or the 6 meeting, we're going to have Stormwater 101, so we are in compliance with our MS4, federal MS4 permit, and freedom of access, so we're in compliance training, so we're in compliance with state law. I would also just remind people that if we truly get blizzard conditions, I would love it if we could learn from the last experience, and folks who don't need to be on the road, stay off the road if possible, that it's not an opportunity. I know it seems like fun to ski down the middle of roads, but that's actually quite dangerous. Kids playing in snowbanks is quite dangerous when you've got plow trucks out. So we would encourage people not to attach their sleds to the back of cars, to take a spin around town, to just stay off the road and let the crew clean up. This is my preemptive strike, Sam. After the blizzard is over, Well, everybody will be coming out of their homes ready to partake in the world. Public Works is going to be going home once they have hit the minimum cleanup effort, because they will have been in their trucks for a very long time, and they need to go home and sleep. They will then attack the storm cleanup. Moving 24 inches of snow is much different than moving 6 inches of snow. And patience is something that we are going to ask of our citizens. We will not make decisions not to plow roads or to not clear sidewalks, but they might be roads might be very tight if we get a lot of snow, and we might have to go back out and clear them out with sidewalk machines, which means we don't have that effort for the sidewalks immediately. So that's my blizzard. We're on it, but it's probably going to be a very slow going. And the last thing, I just want to remind folks that there has always been a requirement to register dogs that are over 6 months of age by state law. It's always been a requirement. In the past, you could go have your dog vaccinated for rabies and never come into the town office and nobody would be the wiser. There was a change in state law. The town office now gets every single one of those rabies certificates. And the state requires us to then make people aware that they have not yet registered their dogs. If you had the dog at the beginning of the year and you have not registered it, state law requires that you not only have to pay the initial fee, but a $25 late fee. And it's in statute. It is not something that I can waive or that the council can waive. We've had a lot of people coming in upset because they've not registered their dogs and now have a late fee. I'm just making people aware. It's there. If you have a new puppy, now is the time to come in and register it before it gets too old. And now I'll hand it over. And now this.
Are you ready, Chief Hugh?
I am.
Go right ahead. We're
Ch-
discussing railroad quiet zone.
Josh Ewing, Chief of Police. The town received one written complaint and several other verbal complaints about the noise from the train horns. With the increase in economic activity, there's been an increase in train activity in the town, and their national railroad safety rules mandate that they will sound their horn. I think the rule is 15 seconds before a crossing with an intersection. So once you hit, say, the Pine Street crossing, and obviously 15 seconds before that, they start sounding their horns. They're probably pretty much continuously sounding their horns until they pass Crosby Street and perhaps all the way to Penobscot. So the people living in those areas are experiencing pretty steady amount of train warning horn sounds each time the train comes through town. So there was a question of whether or not we could establish a quiet zone through the rules. And I did some research. I did talk to a community in southern Maine, an engineer that had gone through the same process and actually acquired quiet zones. The requirements that are necessary include significant upgrading to the crossings. The Federal Railroad Agency requires much more signage, warning signals, gates, and a continuous warning system that alerts the engineer as he's approaching those intersections that he knows that those signals are working and that they're functioning properly. My understanding in talking to that engineer from southern Maine, we have one intersection out of this, and actually doesn't, the lines are kind of askew here, but basically starting at Pine Street, we have Pine Street, Middle Street, Water Street, North Main Street, Crosby Street, and Penobscot Street. Water Street has lights and a gate that comes down. That is the only one. To establish a quiet zone, every crossing would have to have lights, gates, and the continuous warning system, which right now none of those crossings have a continuous warning system. his estimate for gates, an upgrade to gates, are about $250,000 per crossing. So we have one crossing that's almost in compliance, and even that isn't. That would still need the continuous warning installed, and I'm not sure what the cost is for that. Initially, when I talked to someone from the railroad, their estimate was an intersection could be upgraded from anywhere from $100,000 to $1 million. That's sometimes how much they cost per crossing to upgrade them to the level that the federal government says that meets the requirements to have a quiet zone established.
And that's all in the municipality.
It is all in the municipality, yes.
And there really wouldn't be any grant funding out there for that.
No. Not that we could. Yeah. So, anytime you get a handful of people who are upset about something, and we know about it, you know, we want to look into it, and the resident that contacted us had a great idea. At the staff level, our sense is it's a little too rich for our blood. We figured we'd ask you, and be able to report back to the resident that gave us his contact information.
And with those upgrades, very likely, there's a numbers threshold that you have to meet and be below. When I inputted, there's a calculator online, when I inputted all those intersections having gates and that upgrade, they're well below. We fall obviously within that range to acquire the quiet zone because the speeds of the trains are slow, and it's all about the speed of the trains and the frequency of the trains. We would be well within that acceptable limit. To gain the quiet zones, we would just have to upgrade each intersection.
So that includes all listed as private roads also?
The private intersections are exempt from those safety rules.
Are some of the complaints coming because of proximity to the tracks as they go, and then they're blasting it right outside their bedroom? If that's the case, is there a way to put a wall or something? I mean, not like the wall, but a wall. Fair question. No, right?
So I
Well,
would-
that would be up to the
Down to the wall.
It's always the wall.
I would just say that
property owners.
if you're awake even on College Heights, as an example, between 2 and 3 in the morning, you get a nice stereo whistle sound.
When the weather's just right, I can hear the horns where we are, when the weather's just right.
I heard them this evening, did you?
Yeah.
While we're-
During the meeting, yeah. It's a beautiful family.
Well, I mean, that would, a wall or some sort of sound barrier would be on private property, so that might be a planning board issue, but that wouldn't really be us.
And it's
as far
just
as-
not the intersection either.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
15 seconds before.
Do we know what they're up against? I mean, the frequency, is it every day at the same time?
I think it is every day now, and I don't know the number of trains, but
Between 2 and 3 a.m.
I live next to the track, and it varies depending on the economic activity going on when all the paper mills shut down. I don't think we had a train even come through town for weeks. And now for whatever reason, they're starting to.
yeah, just a year ago, it was every few days maybe.
Yeah, it was
And now it's
one
more
every
frequent.
day or so, but now it's a couple a day. And, yeah, they wake me up at night sometimes, but they scared the hell out of my father-in-law when he came up to visit us once when we first moved here. He thought the train was coming through the bedroom, but we assured him that he was okay, and he survived. But you get used to it. I don't always wake up when they come by.
I mean, I think it's something we should probably monitor and, maybe put it in
Well,
the comprehensive
realistically, though,
plan
so-
later or
you know,
something.
Yeah. Would you actually think that we would realistically consider that kind of expenditure times 5? Is that what we're looking at?
Not probably during my term on council, but years from now, I don't know.
I would also submit that this is, I think, like maybe the third time since I've been on council that we have discovered this. So, this very thing, because this comes up, it just keeps coming up. I think people move in, they move out, and new people are there, they never experienced it before, they lodge a complaint. But this very issue about the quiet zone and all that. That's come up before, that we would have to put up the automated gates and lights and all that, and it's quite honestly, it's never gonna happen because it costs too much money. In a way, maybe we should be happy that there's economic activity, that there's trains are operating.
Put in a
Yeah.
depot.
Well, it's good for
Any
the
other
state that there's something
questions
happening.
or comments on that? Thank you for reporting back to us, Chief Huey.
And while I have the opportunity, Jeff, I'd like to thank you for your service as well. You've been a friend to the police department and excellent for the town, so thank you.
Great.
And Chief Ewing is headed out to Alabama
Yes,
next week
next week.
to accept our CALIA certification. we
Ideally,
hope.
to sit in front of the commission and let them read the report and ask questions and hopefully receive the award.
You want
I'm sorry?
Credited-
It's for accreditation, so similar to a university or a hospital being accredited, we had assessors come in October and assess our agency and how we do business, and now there's a commission that reads the report, and I go down and answer their questions and hopefully receive the award for accreditation.
Great. Congratulations on that. I will take a motion to adjourn. Jeff, would you like to do the motion to adjourn?
Oh. I move that we adjourn.
Just be sure to show up for the signing, because if you don't get 2 people to show up and swear in, you're still with them.
Also, your statements
You're kidding
earlier
me.
did seem to be the seed of a write-in campaign for tomorrow, so.
You're kidding me.
I need a second, thank you. All those in favor? Thank you very much.
Just so you know, he is right, that if for some reason we couldn't swear somebody in, you do in fact stay.
Stormwater 101, here we go.
What is that, indentured servant, or what is that?
Pretty much.
I think we could have Stormwater 101 at 6, so Jeff could go to that. And then you can swear in.
Just what he needs, right?
Do we have-